comes down to this for Thousand Oaks in their season. It is a gift to Martin. Martin gets the first down and more. It's a nice little screen to the left-hand side. One play and see ya later. Caldera dives into the end zone. Touchdown Oxnard. What a fitting way to end that run. He's at the 40. He's at the 20. 10, 5, touchdown.
Hello and welcome. Oh, we're playing the music again. Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Prep Period, the Ventura County Stars All Preps, All Sports podcast. My name's Dominic Massimino. He's Joe Curley, here with another week of our awesome podcast. Super stoked for it. Joe, how are you doing?
Doing great, man. League season starts. Major League Baseball playoffs are here, which I'm really excited about. So it's a great week. Great week.
I'm stuck in the tough position of being on a sports staff with two diehard Boston sports fans. So that's all I. Sorry. I mean, two sports fans of various teams.
There's one we know about.
And as people may know, I'm from DC, so not a whole lot of love shared between those.
There's got to be mystery. You got to keep mystery with the.
And
readers,
that is my mistake. That is my mistake. So
I covered the Los Angeles Rams for 5 years, and I had to ignore. You know, as a reporter, you have to ignore your own fandom sometime, and separate.
For sure, 100%. So we don't have to tell people about my masochistic fandom of my hometown sports teams.
We all have it. We all have it. It's a shared experience, no matter the team.
Very true. So yeah, another exciting show. It's maybe a shorter show this week, just given how short of a week of football we had last week, but still some stuff to talk about. Still some interesting things. You were out at the game this week. I was sitting at home on my couch watching lots of games and working on the blog, doing my best John Catalini impression.
Yeah, you did a phenomenal job. There's a lot of plaudits that went your way for the great job you did following all the games, although it is easier to do 5 than 17.
17. This is true. Yeah, and I was
steps.
I was still running around in my mind, kind of crazy, like who scored here, who scored there. So yeah, props to our boss who does that every week. But yeah, the game of the week, Newbury Park, Ventura. It's one that we talked with Derek Garcia about last podcast, leading into this one, about kind of what his hopes were for how things were going to go. But tell us, give us kind of the Reader's Digest of your gamer and what you saw, and just give us all the info.
Yeah, Newbury Park beat Ventura for the 3rd straight season, but those 3 games have all been very different. The playoff game, when the 2 quarterbacks were sophomores, was a phenomenal game that was decided by a backup quarterback, or one of the key moments was decided by a backup quarterback. The last year's game at Larrabee was kind of a blowout. This year was Newbury came out and played phenomenal in the first quarter, scored 3 straight touchdowns, got it on, took a 20-0 lead, really looked like they were going to blow Ventura out. And I thought Ventura showed a lot by getting back in the game. They were super aggressive, going for 4th downs, and they did a really aggressive decision at the end of the first half to go for the end zone rather than kick a field goal to make it a 27-17 game. And the decision ended up costing them points that might have helped out later in the game, which would have made it a 1-score game in the 4th quarter when it was a 2-score game. So, but I asked Coach Garcia after the game about it, and he said there's no regrets, because when you're playing against Brady Smigel, you have to be as aggressive as possible, keep the ball away from him, do whatever you can do. I mean, they've learned it, right? They played him. They've seen sophomore Brady Smigel, they've seen junior Brady Smigel, now they've seen senior Brady Smigel. And I thought it was really interesting to be there at Newbury, where, they haven't played well. Brady's thrown 8 picks. On paper, it doesn't, on paper, he's maybe not doing what he's done in the past, but when you see the opponents, when you see what he is around him, when you see it's a completely new team, with young, sophomores and juniors who haven't played much. I think he's playing his best football. Some of the
Interesting.
balls are just, I mean, it's college, it's Power Five, Power Four, starting quarterback caliber play out there. And, some of the people around him, um, I guess there's kids committed to Michigan, and he's not out there throwing, 30 touchdowns and no picks. But when you look at the degree of difficulty, when you look, it's a whole new team. All his teammates have graduated. He said something to me that's in the story. A lot of these kids were in 6th and 7th grade when we met Brady, when Brady was a freshman. So you're talking about kids
Wow.
who are now becoming varsity players on the job. And he called himself Uncle. He goes, I'm the uncle around here, which I thought was really cool.
Unc Brady.
He's got a role, I mean, he obviously, has had as much high school experience as anybody. And, he's had one of the great careers in California history. He's the reigning California Mr. California football, from Cal High Preps. And it's beyond just the stats. If you just look at the stats, Brady's having arguably not his best season. But when you watch him play and you see what's around him and the job that they're doing just to be successful, just to win games, just to be 3-2, I was really impressed. They went head to head with Pacifica, and he got sacked 6 times, and he's getting hit every play, and he's dropping the ball in a bucket and moving the ball up and down the field against the team, that's 5-0, that is just mauling everybody. So I don't know. I thought it was good to see. It was the first time I saw Newbury Park. Second time I saw Newbury Park live.
Yeah.
And it left me thinking that they're going in the right direction. They got Balin Betancourt back, who's, an absolute key piece of that defense. When he tore his knee in the state semifinal last year, I thought he wouldn't play his senior year. So the fact that he's back in week 5, coming off an ACL, is phenomenal. He's not quite himself yet, but he was on the field. He was making plays. He got a TFL. It's going to take him some time to kind of be, probably be another. If he's Balin Betancourt in another month going into the playoffs, that's just an unbelievable outcome for what that man has been through. And I think they're starting to show something. Now they're going to look like it. They get some transfers now, and so we'll see what they look like this week. But we'll talk about that in the next segment.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, not to jump ahead. Oh yeah, go ahead.
And then Ventura, Derek Garcia, 400 yards of total offense, 4 touchdowns after the game. I'm talking to his dad, and I'm talking to him, and he admits about how much he wanted to win that game. You lose to the same team 3 years in a row, that eats away at you. But I mean, that's why he was tucking the ball and running and taking shots in a non-league game. I mean, he showed guts. He showed real, you could tell. He didn't have to tell me he wanted to win the game. He showed that by the way he played, by how many he took shots to get first downs, to keep them in the game. And then Jack Cunningham, every time you see Jack Cunningham, he's just better. And right now he's the most productive receiver in Ventura County. He's arguably the best receiver in Ventura High history, and he gives Ventura a chance every time they take the field.
Yeah, so it's funny. I'm working on the blog, right, and I finally wrap up a couple of games that we'll talk about here in a second. But I had the NFHS stream up, and I pull up Ventura Newbury Park because they were the game that kind of went latest, and I throw it on, and Ventura's trailing. They're trying to stay in it, and one of the first plays I saw was that touchdown pass to Jack Cunningham that seemed like it was like, oh crap, Ventura's back in it, sort of looked like they weren't, and then all of a sudden they were, and then all of a sudden they weren't again after that Jack Shep touchdown that kind of just completely answered that Cunningham touchdown. But yeah, just a player who can just make things happen for them. We've said that so many times, but it bears repeating. He's a real talent.
He could turn the most innocuous swing or screen into 6, with one cut and a broken tackle. I mean, he's a phenomenal high school football player for sure.
Yeah, very cool. And the story kind of for Newbury Park we have mentioned a few times is like, yeah, they're we'll see what they look like once they get their transfers in and after the sit-up period and all that kind of stuff. And it sort of feels like it ended up being more like, they get a couple transfers who don't have to sit because they have valid changes of residence. You have Devin Olmondi playing from the beginning of the year. He's turned into a weapon. You have Jack Shep,
Matthew Curry.
Yeah, you have Matthew Curry, Jack Shep, who popped in this most recent game. Guys who have been available these first few weeks, but instead of, not being available because they have to sit out, it's been a process maybe of kind of getting comfortable with each other, getting that chemistry built and that kind of stuff. And it seems like as we've marched closer and closer to league, now we're on its doorstep, like, that chemistry has been built and maybe, it's taken a different sort of path with these new offensive weapons around Brady, but we've arrived maybe at the same kind of destination that we thought we would, just, via a different path. Kind of interesting.
Yeah. I'll give you my thoughts when we get to the next segment.
For sure. Yeah. So another game this week in the short week was Camarillo Oxnard. We had yet another strong Shane Feller showing. He makes 178 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns look normal, because for him it has been this season. That's a pretty average night for the running back who has 122 carries on the year, which is 34 more than the second most in the county, which is Jake Williams of Grace. So he's just been a workhorse for Camarillo, and he was on Friday night. Camarillo routs Oxnard, I think it was 49-0, was it not?
Yep.
So another big win for Cam. I caught a little bit of that game on the stream. Some more productive, passing flashes from Brad Barlow, which is cool. Guy who impressed me.
He was 9 of 10.
Yeah, guy who impressed me in that game against Ventura and continues to impress, filling in for Dylan Nicholson. So that's pretty cool. 9th straight win over Oxnard in the series, dating back to 1961.
Yeah, it's good, for the quarterback to get kind of comfortable as they go into league. Obviously, Camarillo knows the gauntlet they're about to go through. But it was nice for them to taste victory in their 2-game losing streak. And now, obviously Oxnard needs to make some significant strides here, depending on who they get back injury wise, depending on, who's able to join them transfer wise. I mean, I think, we'll see if they're able to kind of turn it around. Obviously, all of a sudden they have a huge game. They play Royal. Royal's coming out, a 2-game winning streak. So, yeah, I mean, Royal went and handled Hueneme. I think it was Joe Stradamus's one loss this week. So they were kind of enjoying on social media, giving it to me a little bit.
Which you Royal players out there chirping, I loved that. I loved it when I saw that on social media. It gave me a real laugh. So shout out to you guys.
If I'm gonna pick against you and you prove me wrong, you deserve to have your say. So, I was joking with Coach Brubaker that. I actually had picked Royal and then I flipped it because I was doing the research for the column, and I remembered now that Hueneme had beaten him last year and had kept him out of the end zone, and so so I was like, okay, well, Royal's got to show me a little bit more before I'm going to pick them, and kudos to them. Griffin Perry, who's been thrown into that quarterback situation when they lose their starter in the first series of the year. He ran for 4 short touchdowns. I think he had like 32 yards rushing, but 4 touchdown runs. Yep. Landon Murray continues to impress. 208 yards from scrimmage, 2 touchdowns. Highlanders get back-to-back wins going into league. Now they get Oxford this week, so all of a sudden, they're starting to gain a little bit of momentum. They're expecting to get Preston Murray back at some point during league, and maybe that transforms. Certainly, that when we talk about that league in the channel, we talk about the channel league, they're going to be a long shot. But don't close the door on Royal just yet. 2-3 and starting to gain momentum.
Yeah, and you think about how valuable it would be to slot Griffin Perry back into his former role. You get another offensive weapon if you can get your quarterback back who Coach Brubaker was super high on coming into the year. We heard so much about him. So yeah, I mean, that could be good for them. And that's exactly what you want as a team, like Royal, that's been working into a new system and they're, building things back up, to have that kind of the on-ramp a little bit, to be playing teams that are competitive with you before you have to go up against the, the Moore Parks and the Venturas and that kind of stuff in that league. So it will be cool to see. I'm super looking forward to down the road seeing them against Oak Park, and what they can do against that team as they again continue to kind of ramp up. And shout out to Hueneme quarterback Alex Bravo, who completed a few touchdown passes to keep Hueneme in that game, and they didn't want to go away. It was every time I was updating that score, I'm like, oh man, here comes Hueneme again. So fun competitive one of the competitive games on Friday night. And yeah, so Pacifica. Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead. What'd you have?
No, go ahead. Moving to Pacifica. I mean, not by the time we get to Friday night, Pacifica was already done for the weekend. Really interesting situation where they lose their week 4 game. They were about to take they took the forfeit, then they took the forfeit off the table. And played a game with Hamilton, who was in a similar situation where they had lost the game and taken a forfeit. So both those teams kind of cash in forfeits to play an actual football game, which kind of weirdly pays off for Pacifica, because for some reason they go from 25 in the Southern section they woke up on Saturday morning and they went from 25 in the Southern section, the former CalPreps ratings, which determine the playoff divisions. Now they're 40. So they win a game 42-14 and drop 15 spots, and not just 15 spots, but 15 spots in the top 40.
Bizarre.
So, and that, I mean, they'll probably still be Division II at the end of the Romani League campaign, but because they schedule that game and it gets them down to D3, would just be invaluable for, the type of postseason that the Tritons can kind of put together. The Taylor Lee improved to 26 touchdowns and 85 completions in just 100 pass attempts this year. So just phenomenal first half of the season for Taylor Lee. There's good luck finding a quarterback who's got a better stat line for this season in the entire country. I mean, he's just been out of his mind.
It is getting to a ridiculous place where it's like if you're on the sidelines of a Pacifica game and the ball somehow doesn't find its way into a Pacifica receiver's hands, it's like, whoa, what's going on here? This is not normal.
85 completions and 15 incompletions. He's right on 100. The math is super simple because he's right on 100 attempts.
Yeah.
So, obviously everything's going to change going into league. Now they're playing, he's got the Oaks Christian defense this week. They're going to have St. Bonaventure and Simi coming. So you're talking about some of the best defenses in Southern California laying in wait, but certainly Pacific is in an awesome place. We'll talk about whether they're the real favorite in that league in a little bit. But conversely, we talked about Pacifica going down with a win. Calabasas went up with a loss. They scheduled Los Alamitos. And I talked to Coach Kerry Harris last week about this, where Los Alamitos is one of the best public school programs in the state, one of the best on the West Coast. And, he went down to 9 games. They were trying to find the only game they could get was Los Alamitos. Calabasas probably does not want to be playing a game against a Orange County public school twice their size right before they go in the league. But, considering all that considering that situation, they played really well. They pulled in the touchdown twice in the first half. All their, Kane Miller scores, has a nice game running the ball. So they got really good film against one of the best programs around. So, really good for the Coyotes to play well in that situation. I guess in that regard, the ratings kind of captured that because they went from 101 the Southern section to 89, I believe, just with that loss. So Pacifica wins and goes down, and Calabasas loses and goes up. So, good luck making sense of all of this. Santa Paula improves to 4-1 with a win over Carpinteria. They're, long time former league foe, a team they've played forever and ever. They continue to run the ball really effectively. Renee Vega continues to play really well.
That's the story. That's the story to me, is the growth there. It's like, they complete a touchdown pass to Dominic Meza, receiver who's kind of been stepping up big these last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Then so he gets knocked out of the game. Actually, he's helped off the field on a rushing play. He's blocking for, I think, Sebastian Alcantar, and he takes kind of a funky fall, grabbing his lower leg. They help him off the field, and then he comes back on the next drive and catches another touchdown pass. So that was pretty cool. Gritty to see that, and just seeing Santa Paula bounce back from fumbling, on the opening kickoff, giving up the field goal, ends up being the only score that they give up in the game. So pretty dominant in the latter half of the game there for Santa Paula, and an exciting team, as we'll talk about later on when we look at league. Just exciting team looking at the Tri-County race, just like another real competitive squad, kind of near the top half of those projected end of season standings.
And then, even though Channel Islands loses for the fifth straight time and falls to 0-5, they you start to see a little bit of improvement from their offense, which has really struggled. It's the first time they've scored 2 touchdowns in a game this year. Christian Silva, the junior quarterback, was 22 of 40 for 245 and 2 touchdowns. Andrew Chavez, I believe, is a baseball star for them too. I think that name sounds familiar. 5 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown. So maybe they found something offensively that will help them as they go into the Citrus Coast League here starting this week. And just to mention that this was kind of like our short week of the year, the rest week. Only 10 of the 14 of the 25 teams that we cover played, because week 5 is the most popular bye week. Because it's right before league. Ever since we went to the 16 leagues, week 5 has been the popular bye week because everybody has league games the rest of the way. So you take that week off and you get rolling. That said, we do have a week 5 poll. I don't know if it's up yet, but it should be up shortly. So go and vote, whether it's Shane Feller or Renee Vega or some of those Channel Islands guys, or Brady Smigel, Griffin Perry. They're all in there. So if your team played last week, go vote for your guys. What else?
Go vote. Keep voting. You guys have been doing great. We appreciate you.
Capital letters. That's why it's funny when John posts the thing, it's always vote in capital letters. And I'm like, why are you yelling at me?
Whoa. Hey, real quick, Joe, check your mic connection for me. There's just like a little bit of static coming in. Maybe plug it in, unplug, plug it back in.
It is actually touching my laptop.
There we go. Perfect. I think that fixed it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We always gotta have one thing every week that doesn't go
that's right.
as planned. We said it last week. This is we take it a little easy in week 5. Everybody chills out a little bit, and then boom, this coming week is gonna be a big one, and every week
I tried to take it easy. I still filed the roundup at about 3:00. Yeah. It was about 3 hours later than I thought I would. But Fridays and Saturdays are a grinding football season. That's what we signed up for, and that's what we love.
Damn straight.
Deuce's stat of the week. 4 touchdown passes in the win over Ventura on Friday means Newbury Park senior Brady Smigel has moved into 3rd place on the state's all-time career list with 162 touchdown passes. He's just 8 away from 2nd place. He's also approaching, those of you that remember Tristan Gebbia at Calabasas, he's approaching that all-time local passing record. Gebbia broke Clausen's record at Oaks Christian when he was at Calabasas, 13,109 yards. Brady's about 500 yards away, so he's kind of on pace. Honestly, he's on pace to become the 2nd leading passer in state history, and for touchdowns as well. By the time we get to the regular season, I think end of the regular season.
Wow, impressive. I think I just heard the bell for second period, Joe. It's time to talk about some league previews. So we jumped back. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago. We looked back and kind of checked in on how we were feeling about our projected league finishes, just based on a small sample size, couple of games. It's time to do that again because this Friday, we kick off league football, and what place better to start than in the Marmani League, where we have I think a very, very, very interesting matchup in Pacifica versus Oaks Christian this week, because there's so many questions to answer, but there's 2 big ones. Pacifica's been dominant. They've been trouncing every team they've faced. But when they come up against, these Marmani League powers, fellow Marmani League powers, what's going to happen? That's kind of the question that's been lying in wait. And a very similar question on the opposite end of things. The Marmani League team with the worst record so far, 1-4, is Oaks Christian. They've played these ridiculously impressive teams. They played Sarah. They put, they've
some of the best teams in the country.
Some of the best teams in the country. Yeah, and so
Santa Margarita.
Everybody's asking, what is Oaks Christian? Like, have they really taken a step back, or have they just been playing a ridiculous schedule? And those 2 questions and those 2 teams are gonna, meet on the field Friday. What are you thinking? What are your kind of predictions for this game?
Yeah, I just from the league entirely, is the main question is Pacifica the favorite? Are they the real favorite? Is Oaks Christian the most talented team? How much does non-league schedule matter? And I know both those coaches are excited about their position going into league. The last time Oaks Christian lost 4 non-league games, they made a CIF final. So certainly no reason to close the door there. Simi Valley has played, after starting 0-3, has played 2 great games. They went from 3 rushing touchdowns in their first 3 losses to 12 rushing touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. And, they've kind of found a formula with the run game and the play action game. Petrov is playing really well at quarterback. He's kind of solidified his position there. The defense is awesome. If they get healthy, don't count out the defending league champions. St. Bonaventure's 2-3 under first-year coach Troy Hill, but they, you look at their games. There's only 1 game that's gone over 19 points of the 5 games. They play like these grind them out, gritty, always in it sort of games. So, they've lost a game on a safety. That was last game. That was okay. They lost the Oak Hills game 16-14 on a safety. They lost another game, like that. Honestly, they it seems like every week they score 2 touchdowns and give up 2 touchdowns, and whatever happens in special teams and turnovers decides the game.
Yeah.
So, I think it's did we say that Pacifica's 5-0 and Oaks Christian's 1-4, and yet Cal Preps has Oaks Christian rated higher than Pacifica? So before you go and we like to label things when we get into what we're doing right now in this segment. Pacifica is probably the favorite, but we don't quite know how good Pacifica is, and we don't quite know how poorly Oaks has played. So
yeah,
and how much Simi has improved. Those are all the things we're going to learn. I think those are the 3 teams that are really in the race. Bonaventure, if they get their offense going, can be in the race. And actually, don't forget, Bishop Diego's 5-0 too. So
yeah,
even though Cal Preps has them as the 5th rated team in the league, they certainly can grind out wins and be right in that race. And that's why it's the number 1 league in the northern area. Is the league is stacked, and you got 5 teams that can win it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, moving to Conejo Coast League, I mean, we have we predicted it was going to be the most competitive league, and so far it looks that way. There's still feels like there's 4.5, 5 teams that can win this league, just based on what we've seen so far. Do you feel like Newbury Park is still the overwhelming favorite, or like do you think, like what do you make of this?
Yeah, we'll throw that word overwhelming right out the window. But I do think, Westlake's 5-0. TO is 4-1 and has been phenomenal. TO's the number one ranked team according to Cal Preps. They're at 59, and Westlake's 82. The really interesting thing is Newbury fell too with their win over Ventura. They moved down to 88, which is, I mean, remember this is the defending Division II champions. They were at 20 last year. So yeah, I mean, I think this is this is the league where I wouldn't be, the most teams are kind of in the race. Westlake, TO, Newbury Park, Santa Barbara is a legit 4. Calabasas, I think, has a puncher's chance with some of their high-powered weaponry they've got offensively. If they can figure out some things on defense, they can get in that race too. Obviously, Rio has struggled, but they're going to actually, for a team that is 1-4, they're going to make some of these teams really compete, and if they get some of their players back, can be in it too. But I think Newbury's still the favorite, until they're knocked off in that league. They're the favorite. I think TO's is going to be right there. That Newbury TO game is going to be one of the games of the year. I really think Westlake, they've only given up 41 points. They've the second lowest total around. Westlake's they don't have a perfect roster yet, but they've got some weapons, and Coach Clausen can kind of dial some things up. So I think they're right in the middle of it. But yeah, I still think Newbury's the favorite, especially with their transfers back. Want to at least see one game with them whole before, anointing somebody else. But those Conejo Valley school district games are going to be, huge. Westlake, TO, Newbury are going to be some of the games of league play of the next month of October.
Yeah, seriously, the Conejo Coast League kind of owns October for us. It's like we're looking at the schedule, and every week there's a game that's like we kind of gotta be there. Like we something to look at every week for us. Any other thoughts on Conejo Coast? Or you want to jump to Channel?
Yeah, I we don't mention them because they're not one of our teams, but Santa Barbara, 3-2, playing well. I mean, it's a different style of play than the other teams in that league. They're going to grind you, and they've got some good offensive line play, and so yeah, don't count them out either. It's super close. It's funny. 4 of the 6 teams in the league are in the 80s in the Southern Section ratings. So 82, 84, 88, and 89. TO is by far out and ahead, and Rio's lagging behind.
Nice. So we've talked a little bit about the question of whether somebody's going to jump out of the pack of 4 behind Moorpark and Ventura to push one of those two teams in the Channel League. Yeah. And I sort of feel like what we've learned so far is that's not maybe the right question. I think the two questions are who is going to win that battle duking it out between Moorpark and Ventura, and who is going to emerge just to take that third automatic playoff spot out of this league. So Moorpark's 5-0, Ventura's a tough 3-2. Those losses are to two really solid Conejo Coast League teams in TO and Newbury Park.
TO and Newbury.
And then you have Buena and Royal, and Oak Park has played well in even in their 4 losses. They're 1-4, and Oxnard's 0-5. It's kind of a question of is Oak Park, is that creative Oak Park offense going to blow up and be able to catch up to Buena, who I think is probably the odds-on favorite right now to be in that third spot. But we are going to learn a lot this week when we see Buena and Ventura play, just to see whether that's an accurate kind of representation, the number 3 ranking for Buena. But yeah, man, it's Moorpark has looked pretty bulletproof so far. Just everything's clean. There's not a lot of mistakes.
I mean, you could make an argument that Moorpark's been the best 3-phase team in Ventura County so far. They haven't been explosive.
Yeah.
The quarterback play is kind of interesting because they're playing 2 quarterbacks, and one's more of a runner, and one's more of of a passer, and so there's a little bit of a tell there when one's in rather than the other. But the special teams has been phenomenal. The defense has been there. They've allowed the least amount of points. They're number one in scoring defense with 40 points. And you kind of can't complain about their schedule. I mean, they beat Royal, they beat Bakersfield Centennial, they beat Birmingham. A lot of our local teams have beat Birmingham, and they shut out the team from Colorado. Okay. But they played Santa Barbara, the team that beat them last year, and they won by 10 points. So I think a lot of work is being done by that If they don't play that Santa Barbara team and beat them pretty handily, you can kind of look at it and say, well, do we really know if Moorpark's that great? But I think you look at that Moorpark win, and I think that's the Santa Barbara win is what, kind of, I think, gives them the edge. Because Ventura lost the two Conejo Coast League teams, and Moorpark won their one matchup against that league. So, certainly we think Newbury and TO are going to finish above Santa Barbara, but it's a 10-point win. They had the game in hand. Moorpark, I think, is the favorite. I honestly can't remember who we picked. Did we pick Ventura?
I think we did. Yeah.
In preseason?
Yeah. I'm fairly certain.
I think Moorpark has shown us stuff, and, I think Ventura's in a place now where, they got to go out and defend their championship. And then, it's pretty obvious that third spot is still way up for grabs between Buena, Royal, Oak Park, and Oxnard.
Yeah. I continue to think that if I had to put, numbers on it now, I think I have Buena, as a tentative third, and Oak Park right behind. But Oak Park Royal is like that's a tough matchup to pick. I think they're, that could be competitive. So yeah, it's up for grabs, which is exciting. Makes for exciting football.
I think I'll go on the record and lean Oak Park
for number 3, really, over Buena.
Yeah, I mean, remember they were there last year at 3, so I think that's I think Oak Park, having seen what I've seen out of that league, I think they might be the team that I would favorite. But again, that's coin flip. And then you look at the CalPreps rankings, all this kind of bears out where Moorpark's at 61, which is higher than most of the teams in the league ahead of them. Yeah. Ventura's at 96, and then the other 4 teams are in the 200s. So the ratings there are kind of also following along with what we've seen on film.
Yeah. All due respect to you and Oak Park, I've heard you say the Oak Park was in that third spot last year before, and it's like that team is unrecognizable. Yeah. It's like nobody,
Yeah.
So
it's a different team, but they've been good. They're 1-4, but they're also the highest rated of those 4 teams.
That's true. By 6 spots.
They're 202.
Yeah.
By 6 spots over Buena, and then Oxnard and Royal are 60 and 80 spots back. But, Oak Park went toe-to-toe with Agoura for half. They played some really good teams, pretty tight. Their losses are, by a score.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And
Tri-County.
Yeah. So, it's the kind of the outside of our preseason favorite Agoura, who I, again, on the record, will go out and say I continue to think that they are the favorite in spite of really awesome starts by Fillmore and Santa Paula. But outside of Agoura, it's been a special year for those 2 rivals, Fillmore and Santa Paula, and they've both done pretty cool things. Fillmore is leading the county.
Fillmore's they're leading Ventura County in rushing. They're averaging over 200 yards a game rushing and over 3 touchdowns a game rushing. So they're the number 1 rushing team in Ventura County. We obviously also love some of the things they do in the passing game. They've been phenomenal defensively. So yeah, I think I think what I wrote in our notes is that, it's a potentially vintage season for Fillmore and Santa Paula. 2025 can be a famous season for either of those 2 rivals, but we still think, Gavin Gray gives Agoura the advantage. Defending champs are the champs until they get knocked off, and that Agoura Santa Paula game is this weekend.
That's going to be exciting. And then, we had a little reporting on George Hastings coming back from injury and maybe jumping over to kind of H-back slot receiver. which it will be an interesting wrinkle. A cool kind of thing to see in that offense that's already got so many talented pass catchers. But you get the transfers in, you transfer running back from Oaks Christian that can handle some touches, and they just get a little bit stronger at the end of the sit out period. So
it's just they have options. I think I wouldn't be surprised if George Hastings plays more running back, especially when they get into the playoffs and stuff. So I just think it's them trying to manage that workload there, because he is so important to their defense and their offense, and they need to keep him on the field.
For sure. And yeah, I mean, it's cool. They already have a talent in Anderson Mercer at slot receiver, who I think is he's an underclassman. I can't remember if he's a freshman or a sophomore, but who's been playing great for them too. So it's like, gets it maybe overshadowed with the Tyler Starling and Gavin Gray and George Hastings, but he's quietly had a pretty good year himself.
Mercer's a sophomore. I mean, that's a really deep receiving core, right? You've got Mercer, you've got Starling, you've got Bellingraph at tight end, you've got Luke Boussier, you've got Murphy Gwynn. So
oh my gosh,
they're super deep. I think I had it in my rankings that they've got 5 different receivers who are in triple digits in yardage and have more than one touchdown. So so Gavin Gray,
plus you've also the Gavin Gray effect.
Yeah, for sure. He could certainly distribute the ball, and you also got Hastings who's there too. So and then whatever the Oaks Christian transfer, whatever this running back and whoever's that running back. And then the other question in this league is was it San Marcos who pushed Agura the most last year? Like, are they going to wake up and join this race, or is that kind of it?
There was a thriller earlier this year. San Marcos Buena, probably Buena's most impressive win so far, was winning that OT showdown, that funky game we talked about, all sorts of special teams malfunctions, but I think it was like 40, what was it, 42, 41, something crazy like that. But yeah, so San Marcos is like, we knew they would run the ball a lot. They have talented running backs. Brody Green came over, who's a all channel league basketball player, came over, started running the ball for them first football season. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything that we've seen so far from San Marcos that puts them into that same tier. I think they're still chasing in that second group for sure.
Yeah, I think it's the main question is, can Fillmore and Santa Paula's run games attack a weakness at Agura? I think it's part of the reason why you see Hastings being primarily a linebacker, because Agura knows that they have to solidify their rush defense going up against Fillmore and Santa Paula, who have been, I think, 2 of the top 3 or 2 of the top 4 rushing teams in the northern area this year. So
definitely. And then Citrus Coast League. What's your? I mean, so I don't think we have covered outside of I saw Del Sol in person playing Royal, but I don't think we have we've seen Nordhoff or Grace in person. But from what you've seen from film, do you think that it continues to kind of bear out that this is a 2-team race at the top with Grace and Nordhoff?
I mean, it was Nordhoff Grace last year, right? And Nordhoff started 4-1 with on a schedule that is a lot of teams we don't know a lot about. Grace, meanwhile, has played some teams that have they played Santa Paula, who's above them. I think they lost to Brentwood, who's a team that's played a lot of our teams and beaten a lot of our teams. So I think they've played a tougher schedule than maybe last year. And then the other 4 teams in the league, you've got Carp, CI, Del Sol, and Santa Clara, who have 1 win among that, from those 4 teams, and it was no wins from beyond that 4. Carp beat, was it CI? They beat Santa Clara in a non-league game.
Yeah.
So you're talking about, you take that game out, and those teams are a combined 0-16, is it? whatever the math is. So, you know, I think this league, I mean, I think it's Nordhoff and Grace. You know, that game, obviously, we expect to determine the league championship. We expect those two teams to be playoff teams. And then beyond that, this league is doing what it's designed to do, which is be a place where these programs can rebuild. Santa Clara and Del Sol are in really unique positions. First year varsity season, first year back up from 8-man. And so they're transitional seasons for them. Channel Islands, I think, you know, maybe I personally thought that maybe they'd be further along this year than they've showed. But maybe the way that they played in the last game, you know, is a little bit of a sign that maybe they're the team from this 4 that'll make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So Carp, you know, kind of drew first blood by winning one of those games in non-league. So I mean, I think it's super interesting. It's like, which of those 4 is going to be a playoff? One of those 4 teams is going to be a playoff team. Who's going to earn it? I think that's the cool thing about the Citrus Coast is you've got those 4 struggling teams at a place where they're going to play a round robin against each other. And, you know, as somebody who was on a winless team in high school at one point, and had a game that, you know, the game of the year that we could finally win a game, you know, when I was a sophomore, you know, we had it circled weeks ahead, and, you know, and you have something to work towards all year. So, you know, all 4 of those teams are going to have a couple nights where, you know, they're going to know that they got to, you know, that they can play for a win. So that's pretty cool. So I think that's the positive about this league.
I love when we get little pieces of Joe Curley athlete lore. That's my favorite.
After I stop you from giving it away in the first minute of the pod,
we got to start building that into the pod. Is like Joe has to share some story from his athlete past.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear wing tee stories with Joe Curley.
I know Adam Brubaker would. Adam Brubaker would love that story.
That's why I was all over Royal in preseason. They're playing the wing tee. It's back, baby.
Joe's on the sideline.
Like, bandwagon.
I love that. I love it. My goodness. All right.
I know that.
So
I can run you some scissor traps.
So we've talked about you know, the leagues on the whole, but this first week, I almost jumped the gun. I did jump the gun in the beginning of last period talking about, you know, this specific Oaks and Pacifica matchup, but you can't escape me now. Yeah, you gotta be like, stop. But yeah, so now, Joe, tell us what you think about this matchup.
The Buenaventura matchup?
No, the Oaks Pacifica matchup, man.
Oh, sorry. I think that, you know, like I told you off air, that I think the key is, you know, certainly Pacifica can win the game. I think Oaks Christian is going to want to, you know, it's going to be, can Pacifica stop the Oaks Christian run game? You know, they're going to have to, you know, lean. They're going to have to give the ball to Rideau, and you give the game to Rideau essentially. Mm-hmm. And, you know, certainly it's within his ability to just blow that whole thing up and, you know, end Pacifica's winning streak. And it's going to be a big challenge for the Pacifica defense. The good thing, you know, is that from Pacifica perspective is that, you know, you're going to do everything you can to kind of force them to throw the ball. You know, they've got a quarterback who's going to be making his second varsity start ever, a freshman. You know, but, you know, Oaks is getting some transfers in. It's going to transform their defense at the back end a little bit. It's going to make, you know, they've got this great class of sophomore receivers that they can tap into. So, you know, it's weird going into a Pacific Oaks Christian game where Pacific, in any sport, where Pacific is the favorite over Oaks Christian. But, you know, I think they certainly are. I guess, though, Cal Preps would say no. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of, what are the state of these two teams going to be after this game? I mean, it's the type of game where, you know, if you get some offensive line injuries or defensive line injuries, or a quarterback takes a hit, you know, it's a potential season altering game. So, you know, I don't quite know I think I'm going to pick Pacifica. But there's some really good reasons to pick Oaks. It would be an absolute monumental game for Pacifica to get a league win. Plus it's going to be in Oxnard. So it's Oaks' first trip to Oxnard. I think when they played in the playoffs a couple of years ago, that was at Oaks. So, yeah. So, I mean, I think, you know, Taylor Lee, you know, Are they going to be able to protect him from this, Oaks Christian defensive line, which is one of the best around? So, I would lean Pacifica, but I certainly think it's a lot closer than 5-0 versus 1-4. And then you had an interesting thing. It's like, which is the bigger Marmonier League game this weekend? Is it Oaks Christian Pacifica, or is it Simi Valley at St. Bonaventure?
Yeah, and I said off air that I think the most competitive game is going to be Simi St. Bonaventure. Like, as we mentioned earlier, like, Bonnie has been in these really gritty, tough, kind of low scoring games, and has, lost on, just, one play, one special teams play,
Yeah,
one thing
one
kind of
mistake.
goes wrong, and it's like, okay, like that's the game because it's happening at the end. But I think that also kind of shows, like, they're in these games. Like, whereas on the flip side with Simi, we've seen two Simi Valley teams. Like, we've seen one that really struggled and, was struggling to find its footing. And then the last two games that sample size, they've looked really good, and Petrov's looked great. And the run game's been awesome with Zane Tryon and Salvilla. So, which one are we going to get? I mean, and I think even if we do get, the best version of Simi Valley, if they keep trending in the right direction, I think it's, could be competitive. We have a really, really good Bonnie defense that's, going to be one of the tougher matchups that, Petrov and that offense have faced. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what goes on there. What do you think as our somebody who's familiar with those two programs, obviously, as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think you summed it up well. Simi is trending in the right direction. Bonaventure is also, they're similar, that they're, they've been stopping the run and run the ball. And, so it's a tough matchup for both these teams. I think I'm going to pick Simi. Santa Barbara Newbury Park is kind of similar in that. Well, I think that that's a good matchup for Newbury, where I think they're in the front half of that defense is playing much better. I think the front seven can kind of handle Santa Barbara. I like Newbury Park. T.O. Calabasas is kind of interesting, right? Because there's a lot of talent in that game, a lot of offensive talent. I just wonder if Calabasas has the defense that can get off the field against T.O. Westlake Rio, okay, it's like, this is a real nice transition game for Westlake into this league as a potential competitive team in this league. Let's see if get past Rio Mesa, and then the bigger bosses will be later on. Moore Park, Oak Park, the battle of the parks. That we'll see if the positive things I'm saying about Oak Park are going to kind of be there at the end of that game, right? Can Oak Park make it a game against Moore Park? Agoura Santa Paula. I think, like we said in the last segment, can Santa Paula stop, or can Agoura stop Santa Paula's run game, or can Santa Paula find enough offense to keep the ball away from Gavin Gray and make it a game? Saying that. Oh, go ahead. Any thoughts there before we turn to the game of the week?
They play a style. I mean, like we said, they run the ball a ton. Even with Renee Vega flashing the ability to kind of be a scoring threat at quarterback in the passing game, like, that's the style you want to play, is running the ball and holding on to it for as long as you can, limiting the opportunities that Gavin Gray has to put up points in a hurry, and kind of force him to make the most of the few opportunities that he gets. But yeah, I mean, I obviously lean Agoura in this game, but it will be interesting for sure to see kind of what the game plan is from Coach Montoya and Santa Paula to try and kind of figure out that problem.
So we mentioned all those games, and we lead into what is by far the game of the week. Always one of the biggest nights of the year in the local sports calendar. It's Buenaventura week. Ventura leads the all-time series 35-26. Teams have split the last four after Buena ended Ventura's long streak. 4 years ago. The two teams play for the Suzanne Brown Memorial Trophy. To mention her, it's a Buena High alum who was a beloved Ventura teacher who died in a car accident with a drunk driver in 1986. I think she was also a former Bulldogs cheerleader. So she gets remembered every time these two teams play each other. And then in terms of the teams, I think it's the type of situation where, Ventura brings back a lot of the players that won this game a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's whether or not Buena has been able to improve enough to kind of close that gap. I mean, you've seen these teams. What do you think about Buenaventura this week?
Yeah, I mean, so I think Ventura is the favorite. I don't think that's a secret based on what we've seen from both teams so far. But the key to kind of determining who's going to win this game and how close it's going to be is just which offense can be more consistent. They both are, can be extremely explosive. I mean, Jackson Roberts, Christian Quezada, Blake Eberhard, those three can just break a game open, with their talent, with their ability. We know what Ventura's offense can do. We talk about the players all the time, and Jack Cunningham and Derek Garcia. We saw what he did this past week. So they can be explosive. We've also seen them, go cold. I saw it in the Ventura Camarillo game. In the beginning of that game, they go 3 and out twice, and there's kind of some scratching the head and frustration and what's going on, and then they come back and blow up in the second half and are great. And go on to win that game, lopsided victory. So, and the same can be said for Buena. They'll have Jackson Roberts go and catch a 50-yard touchdown on a wheel route and just kind of gets behind the defense, and he's fast and explosive. And so who's going to be able to execute consistently throughout the game? Who's going to be able to? What's up?
One other interesting thing I think when you're there on the sidelines and pregame that you got to check out is that Ventura was not at full strength last week. Buena will see on film that defensive end Jordan Butcher didn't play, Tristan Savage didn't play, Dylan Cleansing didn't play. So there's significant players. Did Radwich play? He might not have played.
Oh my goodness.
So some of the better, not the huge names,
but
not the big
key
three,
supporting cast members there.
But key players in their front seven were not there last week against Newbury. So who comes back. If Tristan Savage plays, is he going to run the ball? Is he able to run the ball? So I think that's the state of Ventura health wise going into that game. I'm sure all those kids are, this is like we said, if it's the biggest game of the week for us, it's the biggest game of the season for them. I expect, if those kids can play, they will. But certainly how they can play and how well they play kind of changes the dynamic when you're balancing these two teams. But, I agree. Certainly Ventura the favorite, but, on any given night in this rivalry, you never know.
For sure. Joe, I think we've run past our heart out for you. You got a important appointment. I apologize for that. So just real quick, go follow us on social media, at VCS Preps on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. Subscribe to us here if you're watching live on YouTube, youtube.com/@VCS Preps. Go read our stuff on the Ventura County Star website. Go subscribe. What do you got, Joe?
And when you're out at a game on Friday night, make sure you get on our app and update the blog. We'll have all with all these games going on. We'll have all the updates at vcstar.com and the VC Star app. That's what Dom showed you how we do it last week, and Mr. Catalini will be back this week. So. Looking forward to it. Thank you all, and we'll be back next week with all kinds of big time things to talk about, I'm sure.
Stay tuned. All right, guys. Till next time.
It comes down to this for Thousand Oaks in their season. It is a gift to Martin. Martin gets the first down and more. It's a nice little screen to the left-hand side. One play and see ya later. Caldera dives into the end zone. Touchdown Oxnard. What a fitting way to end that run. He's at the 40. He's at the 20. 10, 5, touchdown.